Hey guys, you need to stay to the end of this video because not only are we going to be doing a product review on an American equity annuity, but I'm going to give you a framework that you can use to apply to any product that exists in the life insurance or annuity space as it relates to dissecting the index options available to you. So make sure you watch through all of this. It's going to be a great framework that you can take and apply to any product that you may be considering either selling or purchasing. Hopefully it'll be helpful, and we're going to run through this thing as quick as we can. So I'm not sure if you realize this or not, but the world of insurance is getting more and more complicated every single day. And specifically, I'm talking about life insurance and annuities. Now on our channel, we've started to do a large project reviewing some of the top annuity products in the space for different silos of goal, basically. Are you looking for accumulation? Are you looking for income, guaranteed income? And today we're going to continue in that series talking about the American Equity Asset Shield product line. But the reason I want to highlight this product is because they have several of these brand new volatility controlled index options. And this is going to be the perfect product to do a little bit of a deep dive on why this industry is getting more and more complicated, specifically as it relates to index selections. So without further ado, let's get into the Asset Shield 10. I'm going to quickly just run through the brochure here of the Asset Shield 10. This is the American Equity brochure, and I don't want to spend too much time on this other than, just highlighting what they say about it. So there's good information here on what is a fixed indexed annuity. I'm going to assume that most of you know what it is at this point in time if you're actually watching a product review. But what they say about this particular product is, well, let's just read it. They say, the Asset Shield is a fixed indexed annuity designed to help protect hard-earned dollars from index fluctuations while offering interest growth opportunities based on increases in an index. So when I read that, I note that there is no mention of income. And so that should be your first clue that this is an accumulation-focused product. This is not a product that's trying to generate income. This is a product that's trying to safely grow your dollars. So this is a 10-year product, which means there's going to be a surrender charge for 10 years, as you can see here on the Asset Shield 10. They also have a 7- and 5-year product that just has different rates and a different surrender schedule. You have 10% free withdrawals annually, which is another standard feature on most annuities. And then one thing that I do like on this product is that they will essentially do two things for you. They give you an enhanced rider benefit for qualified nursing care or terminal illness, which essentially means you can get your money out if you fall under that qualified nursing care provision or if you're terminally ill. And then the second thing is they do have a bailout feature where they tell you up front, if we drop our caps below a certain threshold, you can get out of this product and waive surrender charges. So I like those two things. I think that's good for an accumulation focused product. So all that's well and good, but the real kind of driver of this particular product is going to be the index allocations themselves. They're essentially almost all brand new. They're almost all a flavor of this volatility controlled multi-asset type index. And so I want to spend a little bit of time on those because if you do look at just the illustration themselves, so here's an Asset Shield 10. We're looking at the guaranteed values. Guaranteed 0% in all years. You put in 100,000. Once you get to year 5, you have at least 100,000 in your surrender schedule. There's a minimum guaranteed interest rate of around, I think it's 2.75%. Very small amount of guaranteed interest on this particular product. But the reason that this is sold is because when you look at the non-guaranteed basis, using some of these brand new index accounts, it looks really good on paper. An average of a 9.69% rate of return in a fixed product with a 0% floor is outstanding considering there's no fees on this product. But what you need to know is that 9.69% is deceiving. So here's the crux of this video. You need to watch to the end of this because this can apply to literally almost every single product that's being sold right now. So please, please, please pay attention because you will be able to take this framework and apply it all kinds of different places. Let's take these index values one at a time. So back to the brochure. The first one is this BlackRock index. It's a 1-year account, no fee, and it has a 140% participation rate on it. If we go further on into the illustration, we can see the actual BlackRock values here. And this part of the annuity, the best is 12.66%, the best 10-year. The worst 10-year is 8.62. The most recent is 10.61. So if our average is 9.69, this BlackRock index is bringing up the average. And so we should dive into this index and see, what is it? Well, I happen to have their actual fact sheet. So this is the BlackRock Adaptive U.S. Equity 7% Volatility Index as of September 30th, 2023, straight from BlackRock themselves. And here's what you need to understand about this particular product. As of March, and this is the most up-to-date values that I could find, but as of March, almost half of the money was sitting in cash. Almost half of the money was sitting in cash. 52% of the money is sitting in the S&P. Now, I just quoted you all those awesome returns, 12.66, 8.62, 10.61. Here's what you need to know about this BlackRock index, the inception date. The inception date is March of 2023. So there's no way that this account has a best 10-year, a worst 10-year, and a most recent 10-year. It doesn't have any 10-year track record. It has a 10-year back test, which simply means if this account had existed, it did not. But if it did exist, this is how it would have performed. Well, that's kind of like giving a test and also providing the answers at the same time, and everybody scores a great score. Imagine how that works. If we look at the index performance since the inception of the index, which again is March of 2023, 1.76% is the performance since this actual index has been live. And here's what I'm going to submit to you. If you have an index that has almost half your dollars in cash, there's almost no way that it is going to perform at 12.6, 8.6, or 10.61%. There's almost no way because, again, it's a fixed product. And that would be like cheating the whole system. If you could only invest half your money and all of your money could average near a 9 or 12 or 13% rate of return, it just goes to show you that there's not a whole lot of validity to these numbers, especially in a rising interest rate environment. So that's the BlackRock index. So the next one is the Bank of America index. We have a 20% allocation here to the Bank of America index. That Bank of America index has a published historical rate here in the illustration: best 10-year of 11.3, worst 10-year of 7.3, most recent of 7.3. So this is probably bringing down the average a little bit. We averaged 9.69, if you remember from the illustration. There it is, 9.69. So the Bank of America is probably bringing it down a little bit, but everything that we just said about the BlackRock is going to apply to the Bank of America. Check this out. So our Bank of America index is a little bit unique in that it is a mix of gold, treasury, and equity. So this would be a multi-asset index. The index allocates between equities, treasuries, and gold. Sounds great. Sounds like something that I might like to own. This index started in 2020. So June of 2020. So again, we looked at the best, the worst, and the most recent 10-year period. Does it have that? No. It doesn't, because it was started in 2020. It has a 3-year track record, not a 10-year track record. I love that they give us the most recent weighted allocation of this particular index. This is as of October of 2023. We have 23% of the dollars in equities. We have 66% of the dollars in bonds, and we have 10% of the dollars in gold. Now, here's what's interesting about this particular index. If you have 66% of your dollars in bonds, and interest rates are going up, your bond values are going to go down, which means in the future performance of this index doesn't look great if 66% remains allocated in bonds and interest rates continue to tick up. This index will struggle. It has to, because that's the way it's built. And if we look at the gray bar here, since inception, we just don't have much performance. In fact, it's negative since it came into being in 2020. Our 3-year compounded annual growth rate of this particular index is negative 5.17% per year. And that pretty much lines up with the inception of this index. Not great, certainly not, 7 and 10%. The next index is this CS Tech Edge. Let's talk about it. Here's our CS Tech Edge. Best 10-year period, 13.2. Worst, 9.99. Most recent, 9.99. Is it going to be the same story, or does this index actually have a track record? Well, let's pull up their fact sheet. Here is the Credit Suisse Tech Edge fact sheet as of August 2023. Now, they don't update these like every week, so you kind of get what you get as it relates to the fact sheets. This particular index was live on January 14th of 2021. Does it have a 10-year track record? No. Did they quote us a 10-year track record? Yes, they did, but it doesn't have one. It has a 2-year track record, almost a 3-year track record, because we're recording this in December of 23. The gray is going to be our live data. So the only live data we have is all down here. In 2022, negative 12 on the year. In 2023, about a quarter or 3/4 of the way through, 3.33%. A far cry from the 9 and 13 that was quoted in the actual illustration. But how does this particular index actually work? Well, they're trying to focus their dollars in exposure to 4 equity ETFs known for their focus on innovation and technology. So this is a tech and innovation kind of blend of 4 ETFs. Pretty simple and pretty straightforward. But what actually is the mix? Well, they tell us. They have 12% of the dollars in equities. They have 53% of the dollars in fixed income, think bonds, but in this case, it's treasury notes, the 2 and the 10-year treasury. And they have 34% weighted into cash. So again, we're in the exact same situation. So not only does this index have negative performance since inception, but it's also the majority weighted into cash and fixed income, which means in a rising interest rate environment, most of your money is not going to perform because most of it is in treasuries, and you only have 12% exposure to the very thing that this particular ETF is trying to expose you to, which is tech and innovation. And so moving forward, is this going to perform at 13 or 10%? I don't see how it possibly could. And again, it's a similar story with all these. Let's continue. Our next allocation is this SG Global Account. The SG Global Account in the illustration has some really impressive numbers. The best 10-year at 15.6, the worst 10-year at 8.84, the most recent at 8.84. So this is an index that's definitely bringing up the average of that 9.6 or so percent with their best 10-year at 15.63. But is it the same story? I think it probably will be. Of all the allocations we've just discussed, this one seems the most innovative. So what are they trying to do? Well, they're trying to give you exposure to equities and bonds from 4 different countries. So we have the US, Germany, Japan, and China, but China is equities only. And to further diversify, they're trying to expose you to 3 commodities: ag, energy, and metals. On the face of it, I like this because there's lots of diversification built into this particular index, but the proof is in the pudding, as they say. This particular index has a launch date of December 24th, 2020. So does it have a 10-year track record? It does not. Even though they quote you a 10-year track record here, you'll notice the word simulated performance. And that's how they're able to do that. Simulated performance, not real performance. It's simulated. It's the same thing, right? Like the other accounts that we just looked at, which you can see in the red, it is in the red. It's red everywhere, just like all the other accounts we've looked at so far. Right now, this particular index is in the transitional mode, not the risk on or the risk reduced allocation, which means our mix might look something like this. Most of the money, again, in bonds. How about that? The 10-year US at 24, the 10-year German at 23, the 10-year Japanese at 23%, 18% in commodities, very little of the dollars actually sitting in equities. In a world where interest rates are on the rise and the majority of the dollars are sitting in bonds, will this perform? Probably not in the short term. You're going to have to get interest rates coming down, or you're going to have to get money allocated out of bonds in order for this to perform anywhere close to what it says on those historical numbers on the ledger. The last index on here that I want to chat about with you is this S&P Dividend Aristocrats. And this is an interesting one because it has been around long enough to have a 10-year track record. In fact, this particular index inception date is in 2010, and its 10-year return is 2.26%. Its 5-year return is 0.62%, which is quite a bit different than the numbers we see here on the most recent, worst, and best 10-year period. Now, I will say this best, worst, and most recent is going to include this 185% participation, and what I'm quoting for you is the actual return of the index, which matters some, but again, it doesn't matter for the other index options that are showing you performance that didn't actually happen. At least here, this S&P 500 Dividend Aristocrats, this has been around since 2010, and so if we're looking at 2010 to 20, now this one didn't happen because the inception date, they're looking at 2007 to 17. This one's looking at 2013 to 2023. So this is real. This last one, this 10 most recent, is real because the index was live in 2010 and the start date here is 2013. So this is real, 8.42%, which is awesome. And I like that. But this is not the index that's driving the performance on this particular product. This is only 20% of the allocation. And let's check that. This is only 10% of the allocation. So only 10% of the performance is coming from the index that actually has a track record. None of the others have the track record. So let's try to wrap this up. There's a couple things I want you to understand as it relates to this particular product. Is this product the best product that's out there? Well, that's hard to say. It depends on what you're trying to do. What I can tell you is that this product in the accumulation space, meaning growing your money safely, does have some interesting options. It's the only product that's going to give you an index with an exposure to 3 different countries' fixed income portfolios: Germany, Japan, and the US. Same with the equity side. They do have some interesting diversification in their index options. At the same time, this index is maybe one of the only ones that's going to give you a gold allocation in the form of the Bank of America. Now, there's others that have some gold allocations, but there's no other product out there that's going to combine the type of diversification that we see here, and I like that. The problem is most of these accounts are weighted into bonds right now, and so I don't see how they're going to perform long-term in a rising interest rate environment. That's not the product's fault, and it's not even the index itself's fault. The index was built that way for a reason, built that way to really capitalize on a falling interest rate environment, not a rising interest rate environment. And so I like that you get the diversification here, but will it pan out? That's the question that I would have. But if you want the exposure to those things, this is a way to get it. The more important piece of the puzzle is this type of analysis, this type of digging into the index, looking at the inception date, looking at the weight of where the money is currently allocated, and looking at the overall methodology of the underlying index is a great way for you to be able to dissect and kind of cut through a lot of the BS that is in this insurance space, because these index options can look great on paper. They can have phenomenal back-tested historical numbers, but are they real? It's a fair question and you should ask it. And then the second thing is the past performance likely to happen in the future? And you hear all the time the past doesn't predict the future, but there are ways to look at the performance in the past and extrapolate going forward. And I can tell you with certainty, when you're seeing 9, 10, 11, 12, 13% historical performance numbers, those rates of return were not happening in an environment where the majority of the money was allocated to bonds. The majority of the dollars in those quoted returns was allocated to equities in a rising equity falling rate environment, which is what's going to make those types of volatility accounts grow well. In a world where interest rates are going up, if you got 60% allocated to bonds, it almost doesn't matter what the market's going to do. Those index options are going to struggle. And so this is a great way to dissect any special, fancy, fly-by-night, brand new, showing you 13% per year index allocation, and you should do that. So hopefully this has been helpful in that regard. If you never even consider this particular product or an annuity or an index life policy, it's good for you to understand how to cut through the garbage and make a decision for yourself as to whether or not the product that you're being shown, if you're a client, or the product that you're offering to your clients, if you're a financial professional. You have to do this type of analysis to understand whether or not these products have an opportunity to perform in the future the way that the company may be telling you they've performed in the past. If this is still too much for you, you kind of understand the framework, but you need someone to help, I would encourage you to go to our website, leveragedwm.com. At the top of the screen, you will see book a meeting. You can also see that link below in the description. We'd love to chat with you and see how we can best help you, whether you're considering purchasing an annuity, a life insurance policy, or you just have general questions on financial planning. Go there, book a meeting with us. It's honestly no hassle. It's 30 minutes tops where we just get to know you, figure out what your goals are, and how we can best help you out. Our goal here is to provide the best information and education in the financial planning arena, specifically as it relates to fixed products. So if you have questions, my promise to you is we have answers, and you should take advantage of that. So leveragedwm.com, top of the screen, you'll see book a meeting. You can go there, or you can click the link below in the description. Talk to you soon.